this modality it's complex to look at kind of its genealogy and where it's come from and what it includes. And it definitely feels like it's built on the shoulder of giants. And I would go right back to the human potential movement and like Esalen and the growth of more in the 60s and 70s of this idea of that we can grow and develop and that more is possible. And that's where a lot of therapeutic modalities were generated, and group work in general and one-on-one coaching. And I think that's one thing that it's built on, but it's also built on ancient circle wisdom. It's really clear to me that tribes and humans have been sat in circle for probably millennia, and there's something that happens when we sit in a circle together with an intention to move beyond and to be truthful and face reality. All kinds of things happen. And then circling itself, it spontaneously came across one of the founders in Burning Man 20 years ago on an LSD trip where he was in a very heightened state and started being with his friends in this way that just took nothing for granted. It was like if an alien just arrived on the planet and started looking like at someone like, oh, so you're feeling this, like, what's that mean? Or what is it to even have a feeling? Like, what's going on in you? He started being with the people he was with in such a curious and gentle and like interesting way that people started to feel like they were being circled somehow, and that in his observing someone and being with someone in that way, it's like that changed them. Like they became more themselves and started to access deeper parts of themselves. So that was a huge part of circling. And then also someone else was coming up with something very similar in another part of San Francisco, where he and his friends were just starting to be very, very honest with each other, like, and catching the small things of like, oh, when you said you do want to go out tonight, I thought I heard something in your voice that was maybe like a bit reluctant. And they started to pay such quality attention to each other and give it like, it touches me now because it's that kind of attention that really sees what's happening in someone else in a way that normally just gets shoved under the carpet or normally just gets missed completely. And they would be like really going slow with each other. Before they would go to a party, they would really be like, oh, what's it like? And one of them would be like, oh, I'm nervous, this girl's coming, and being with each other in that way. And then they would go to the party and keep that going. And then they would feel this magnetism that, you know, other people actually want to be seen in that way too. And this movement started to happen around them of this deep authenticity and this deep being truthful with each other and giving each other space in this profound way. And they found each other, and then we found that modality, and it kind of linked to what we were doing, where we were already eye gazing and being truthful with each other and trying to be present with each other. And we took that modality after training with those guys, and we started to change it a bit more. We included that practice completely, but then we were in a workshop, and suddenly our plan to just keep doing the circling, it like didn't feel right. We were sat in the group and we were like, if we say this thing now that we've planned to say, it's like it's almost speaking over this group intelligence that seems to be here. It's like the magic of the circle was before us, and everyone's like, we could see, it was like palpable how present everyone was there. And it felt way more important to listen to that and to let go into what wanted to come through the circle than to be like the governor of this whole thing. And that's where this practice of surrendered leadership was born. It took us a few years to actually name the practice, but what we experienced that weekend of opening ourselves to others and surrendering to what we were actually then going to do. And we realized that when we showed up in that way as leaders, it was almost like it created a energy in the space. And we had this reflected that people suddenly felt like this peace, that they could show up in a way that normally they wouldn't. So we created this practice that on the one sense, we as leaders are setting the context, but in the other sense, we're surrendering to these greater forces that move through us all, and that when we're graced, the circle can mirror that back. That there's something beyond us. There's these archetypes. There's these polarities. There's love. There's inspiration. That these transcendent qualities that move through us all, that unite us all, and this practice is in service of that. It pays homage to those realizations that we've been blessed with. And we've structured this practice to honor that and to create the conditions for that to be shown to us again and again, and for people to experience that again and again. And that's the magic for me that's had me lead it non-stop for 7 years around the world, is that we keep getting graced with it. And it really touches me. Because it's in that letting go that the magic happens. And it's a miracle time and time again when I'm in a workshop and I'm in my own process of surrender of like, God, I don't even feel like leading this now, and I'm about to, like, should I try and energize myself, or should I tell the truth of what's happening? And and I don't know which is best, and then I choose one, and then that theme shows up for someone else. It's like, they're like, oh, it's so nice to see a leader who's vulnerable, or that's exactly what I had. My energy was low. And then I'm like graced with circle wisdom again and again, or how when I take the leap of faith, somehow I'm held in that, and the circle reflects that I am just one part of the circle. And even as the leader of the event, I'm still just one part of the circle. And I'm subject to these forces just as every other human is. And that process of actually seeing another human and being in our raw humanity together is one of the most precious things that we can ever experience.